and I would get to the end and say, and the dish ran away with the spoon. He would burst into tears and say, I want them to come back.
I could see that. Yeah.
I was like,
the fuck are we supposed to eat off of, Mom? I'm gonna go with the butcher, then the baker, then the candlestick maker. She's a whore.
I hope my tits weren't out for any of it.
They're gonna be out soon.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.
Maybe some old dungarees. That's a term nobody says anymore. Nobody calls them freaking dungarees. Why did I just say that? It's like jeans.
Yeah.
Or...
Well, because I said it yesterday.
Did you?
Because remember I told you I had on my work dungarees because I was working on the plumbing.
Maybe that's where it got stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Anyway, I was thinking about there are types of people that hold the signs up in the median strip that want to collect money.
They're called homeless people.
Well, not always. I've seen one. It said not homeless, just down and out. Okay. They're the sign holders. They're the beggars, if you will, of the day. But there seems to be like a couple brands. This is what I've noticed. There's one type that waves like they're running for office. Sometimes they have a reflective vest on. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And they literally could run for office. They just stand there and wave at everybody.
Except for the fact that they're covered in grime. Ugh, that's not a good look.
Okay, you could probably be a greeter at Walmart.
You're right. I have seen several that wear the best.
Yeah, well,
they don't want to get hit by traffic, I guess.
Maybe stay out of traffic then. But I don't know.
I swear these people pull in more money than I do after tax.
And then you have the man or woman, and this is the ones I dislike least, that want to stand there with their children and or a dog. There was a guy over by our Walmart that was in the neighborhood app all the time because everyone was worried about the dog. Well, which makes sense because you know how people are about animals.
The one woman over by that she's usually over by the the Waltham Woods Plaza over there. She's got it down. I think they're from India or something, and she's always got her kids there.
Yeah.
And she's got a sign that's like she's written like the entire Old Testament on it. It's like,
yeah,
please help because my children are important and I don't have a job. And
sometimes there are addendums on the sign. Yeah. It's like they tacked on another sign. Yeah. There was more to say.
Yeah, but talk about the half-ass guy.
Right. And he's the latest kind that I've seen. And we see him almost every morning on the way in to work.
He's got one in a corner that we frequent. Yeah.
A corner. He stands at the off-ramp of a major highway.
Yeah.
And he has the tiniest sign. And instead of holding it up, he kind of holds it off to his hip like someone is making him hold the sign. Yeah. And he won't wave like he's running for office, but occasionally he'll get kind of a half-assed.
I demand more from my homeless people than that. If you're going to do it right.
I've never read his sign because it's too little, and usually he holds it like down here. And then he's usually smoking and or with his hoodie up like the Unabomber. So I don't know what his deal is.
I'll do you one better. The Jehovah's Witnesses that used to come to our door when I lived at the old house. I mean, they had it down. They would come to the door. First, it was just like this black couple would come to the door, and I told them I was a Satanist, and they went away. And then a couple months later, they came back to her, and it was a white couple and two children dressed to the nines.
Wow.
And they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I told them that I was a Satanist and they left. And then I remember one time I was outside raking leaves or something. And I saw it was like the mom and dad, a guy in a wheelchair they were pushing, all dressed to the nines, a bunch of children. I mean, they were playing every angle, the handicapped angle, the children angle. And I told them I was a Satanist. Yeah,
so. Well, that's the fourth type of person with a sign. Yeah. Is the person who is like usually on the median strip and they have some kind of limp or crazy way of walking and they look like they're going to teeter off the median strip into traffic at any moment.
And this is way beyond squeaky boys.
They make me so crazy. I'm like, don't walk, don't, but they never do fall. But yeah, the leading one is the new one is the half-assed. holding the sign guy.
It's just not going to
I
cut
like
it.
it. Anyway, so that's my little rant.
Well, it could be worse. We could be living in 1798. It was pretty boring back then. That was the year that the poem "Rub-a-Dub-Dub," three maids in a tub.
There's 3 men in a
was written.
tub, not
No,
maids. That's your
no.
own thing.
No, it became three men in a tub.
Oh, was it originally?
Originally, it was three maids in a tub.
And someone found this offensive?
It was rub-a-dub-dub, three maids in a tub. And who do you think were there? The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and all of them gone to the fair. So the loose translation of that was, it was supposed to be, look at these three quote unquote salt of the earth men that are secretly perverts.
So they were like
It was a
bathtub stalkers?
It was like a cheeky poem about they were peeping in on a woman. Yeah. So I guess the modern equivalent would be those TikToks I get where it's the woman and she's pushing her tits together and she's going, if you're just an ordinary guy scrolling through, add me. Yeah.
Or it could be, those people that put up surveillance cameras just to watch women in the bathroom, because this is what it appears to be. They didn't have cameras, so I guess they had to look through the people.
It's like a Dahmer kind of thing.
Maybe there was a hole in the wall. I don't
Yeah.
know. I always thought it was 3 men in a tub, and I thought it was the butcher, the
No.
baker, and the candlestick maker all in the tub, which I always thought was weird.
It's interesting. And we still have butchers and bakers, but I think the whole candlestick making thing has gone the way of the Amish.
Candles are still really popular, though. Like Etsy,
Yeah.
there's so many candle makers actually on Etsy. I bought some for the bug off to
Yeah.
keep the mosquitoes and stuff away.
Yeah.
They were really good candles till I left them outside in the sun.
I still think the invention of the light bulb kind of threw the candlestick industry into a tailspin. Now it's little old ladies making them on Etsy.
Yeah, but oddly enough, they still want to use, just like with cars, it's all horsepower, which makes no sense. Why are we still measuring cars in horsepower?
It's true.
How much horsepower do you think it'll take to get to Los Angeles? No.
What do they measure? They measuring candles? What are they measuring? Is that like luminosity or something?
It's luminosity. Yeah, they measure it in what is it? Candle? What is the unit of light for measurement, Google? Oh, I didn't say okay, Google. Okay, Google, what is the unit for light measurement?
On the website lumatex.com, they say candela, CD, the SI base unit of luminous
Candela.
intensity. Do you want a little more context?
No. So we're still measuring candles, and candle
like the horsepower
luminance
thing.
is how
Yeah.
we measure light bulbs or the
Interesting.
intensity of light.
Okay, I can only help you with the second request.
Oh, dear Lord. Go to sleep. Lay down.
Remember going to birthday parties? Speaking of candles, candle jokes, really? Remember going to birthday parties as a kid, and there was always this one obnoxious family that would have the automatic relighting candles for everybody. First of all, it's so
We got them once for one
it's
of our
so
kids.
unsanitary. Everybody's like basically spitting on the cake before you light it up.
But I like a
sorry.
little spittle
Take
on
that
my
again.
birthday cake.
Yeah. Everybody's already spitting on the cake as it is, but then the light goes out and then it flickers back and then they get the spit on it again. I mean, I remember all the adults would be like, "Oh, isn't it funny? Look, the candles came back on," and the kids are like, "Put this fucking fire out. I want cake. Get a fire extinguisher, somebody."
I had like a really horrible thing. I used to always have big parties for the kids with all the relatives back when I was a little housewife, and I would insist on making all the food and all the cupcakes. And I made these cupcakes. They were bumblebees
Okay.
and ladybugs. And the ladybugs, you just put this red food dye, and then upside down chocolate chips were the spots. And of course, licorice was the antennas. And I did the same thing for the bumblebees, except I striped them
Right.
with black frosting. I looked around at this party. Everyone was eating them, and everyone's teeth were absolutely black. They all looked like they lived in Britain with the worst dental plans ever. I didn't know what to say. Everyone's teeth were black. I was horrified.
Did you ever say anything?
No.
I wouldn't have said anything.
I was like, great, enjoy more cupcakes. Maybe get some water. I don't.
That's great.
Yeah. So
Your mom's a fan of the big number
Oh,
birthday candles.
yeah.
Which is great because everybody over 30 wants the exact number out there for everyone to see.
Well, my dad's shtick was always like, "Oh, we would have put enough candles, but we would have needed a fire permit." Was always his joke every year.
That's
So,
great.
yeah. So I think she started going with the number of candles, which she saves and recycles for the next person's birthday. So
Lovely.
I guess you only have to have 0 through 9, and you've got it covered.
Yeah. Remember those scenes in Game of Thrones where all with all the candles? I mean, just thousands. They would have to have someone that professionally lights candles.
In this last series, the prequel, The House of the Dragon,
Yeah. Which we
they
are behind on, I
have
think, actually.
yeah, because the season finale is coming up and I don't think we're quite there.
No.
But they have these big like chandeliers that are all ablaze. I'm like, I want that, even though it would probably burn the whole house down.
I can't remember the scene, but it was like they're in like some kind of a
Yeah.
dungeon or something. It's just a sea of candles all blazing. Or maybe was that on you? What am I thinking of? Where there were just so many
That
candles.
was it. It was
It was Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, and also like the original back when Arya was in the house of whatever the hell it was with all the candles.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That was the House of Black and White.
You
But-
start lighting the candles, and by the time you got to the end, the ones in the front would be burned out.
I don't know if they do it CG, like there are really only 3 candles lit and somehow they multiply it, or that would be an interesting
It's an outrageous amount of candles.
question.
Yeah.
And maybe they just I'll have to read the credits and see if they have like candle lighter, or
Yeah.
they'll probably call it pyrotechnics director.
How many candles died for this movie? That's the question.
What do you do for a living? I'm a pyrotechnics director. Oh, really? What's involved? I light candles on Game of Thrones. Period. End of story. And I stand by with a fire extinguisher.
Well, anyway, going back 300 years ago,
Oh.
as we were, in 1765, this multi-platinum seller came out. Hey diddle diddle. We've got cats. I mean, we got cats in that poem playing musical instruments. We got cows jumping over moons. I would have to venture to say that there were some hallucinogens involved back then.
The little dog laughed to see such a sight. I always wondered how the dog laughed. Maybe he just wagged a lot.
How about the little dog grab some mushrooms, But you know what? Back then in 1765, that had to be like freaking California dreaming. If you lived in London back then, poor bastards,
Do you know, of course, my youngest, who was afraid of really weird things.
Mhm.
Every time I
He
would
still is,
read
yeah.
that nursery rhyme and I would get to the end and say, and the dish ran away with the spoon, he would burst into tears and say, I want them to come back.
I could see that. Yeah.
I was like,
The fuck are we supposed to eat off of, Mom?
I don't know why that upset him so badly. I was like, all right, they're back. They ran away for ice cream. They're back. It's fine.
I do have to mention this also. I could not find the actual survey. Damn it. But there was a 2009 survey where this little piggy went to market was the 8th most popular nursery rhyme in the UK. I want to know what it beat out.
You know what? I
couldn't
understood-
find the actual survey to see any more about it, but that's number 8.
I never understood how dark that mug was. I thought this little piggy goes to market meant he went grocery shopping. That's not what that means.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
means he went to slaughter,
Yeah, they were living vicariously on walking bacon back then.
so
Again, not much going on.
I'm
You're right.
imagining little piggy going to Giant with his coupons, and no, it wasn't. That's not what they
No.
meant.
It was about bacon. And here. So
This little piggy went wee wee wee. This little piggy had none. I don't know.
that's a great thing to say. I'm vegetarian. We're gonna get a pet pig because then when it dies, we can have a barbecue. What about the ashes thing? That's one of your favorites.
Oh yeah, the
Dark as fuck.
Yeah, that's actually about the bubonic plague.
Mm.
About we all fall down like we're all dying, and the ring around the rosy was the sores that you got, the round circular lesions. So
Pocket full of posies was because they thought that the stench made the disease spread. That's why that you were happy then to see the doctor that had those big beaks that were actually crammed with flower petals. I mean, we're talking about a great time to live, people. Fun.
So yeah, but they still sing it. Although I think they changed it. It used to be ashes. I think they changed it, didn't they? To posies, we all fall down. I don't know. They changed it to something.
Did you know there's a lot of lyrics in Skip to Maloo? That
Alright.
song goes on for days. If you look it up for real. Yeah, I mean, it's like the old-fashioned version of Thank You Next.
Yes.
This woman has a full succession of future partners mapped out. If you don't work out, I'm going with your brother-in-law. If you don't work out, I'm going with your plumber.
Oh, woman's
your
got to
your
have
book-
plans.
I'm going to go with the butcher, then the baker, then the candlestick maker. She's a whore. And let's just say it. She's a whore. Okay.
Oh, that's right up there with Johnny So Long at the Fair. I was like,
I don't know that one. What's that
she's
one?
upset. It's an old song about, oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Johnny So Long at the fair, and he promised to buy her ribbons, and God only knows what Johnny's actually up to.
What's he? He's porking the cotton candy lady or something, I guess.
But I always feel so sorry for him. Like, yeah, he's not coming back.
Have you ever heard Flipper's version of "There Was an Old Lady That Swallowed a Fly"?
No.
It goes on for days. It's great. He gets to the point where he's like, we're way past flies and spiders and things. He gets to the point where he's like, there was an old lady that swallowed a minister. Isn't that
my
sinister?
God.
She swallowed a minister. It just goes on and
Wow.
on and on. I'll play a little clip for you right here. Yeah.
She swallowed the minister to catch the goat, and she swallowed the goat to catch the dog, and she swallowed the dog to catch the cat, and she swallowed the cat.
Flipper. Well, all right. Well, you know what? Music. Why don't we talk about some music? That's
All
not a
right,
bad
let's talk
idea.
about some music other than nursery rhymes. And
Oh,
like-
we'll get back to that. Don't worry. And I even got some more candle material if you guys want it. So, anyway. So our feature interview part 2 is what?
This is our future interview part 2 with our Black Irish metal icon, Alan Averill. This part of the interview
He's not
is-
black. It's it's black metal Irishman.
All right, let's take
Let's
that
not
again.
confuse the listener. Yeah.
Let's interview this again. So our future interview is part 2 of our conversation with Irish black metal icon Alan Averill. This part of the interview is a little later, less political, more music stuff. But think about, I couldn't believe all the bands that he is either has been in. Like, I love The Nest.
Yeah.
That's like kind of like a super.
Well, he said it
group.
last when we interviewed him. He said, "I refuse to not be busy." So
Void of Silence is another one, which will be
even if he finds it a fool's errand,
but it's so amazing, to see him on all these different fronts, and all of them are just a little different. He's an amazing musician.
so let's play some music. One of Alan's bands, it goes back a while, was Twilight of the Gods. Originally, it was formed as a tribute to Bathory, and it's got UK drummer Nick Barker. He was in Cradle of Filth, Old Man's Child, a bunch of other bands. The drummers are always in multiple bands because they got a kit and they got to use it. It's hard to get a good drummer. One of my favorite musicians, Rune Eriksson from Mayhem and Aronior, is in it, and of course Alan on vocals. It's an old project. Like I said, it goes back to 2013. Let's play a song.
Yeah, my favorite, I think, thing about this is the galloping guitar riffs and the kind of call to arms.
Yeah.
It's definitely like men on a mission.
You got Alan in there and Rune Eriksson. You're going to have some quality black metal. So this is Children of Cain. Okay, Patreon time. Patreon.com/Snaggletooth podcasts. So I'm going to be posting something this week on one of metal's most divisive albums, Sepultura's Roots. Is it any good? Tune in to see. Hit the subscribe button and get over there and give us $6.66 a month. We need it.
Yeah, podcasts actually cost a lot of money to produce. Between the monthly fees and the platforms and the software, and
My foray into silk screening.
we're getting there. We're really getting
Yeah.
there. So yeah, we need your help to keep this show going. So hit the subscribe button. You won't be sorry. We're gonna put tons of bonus footage on there for Patreon only. There'll be some Patreon only things available. So
Stacy might begin some of her famous book reviews.
so you're gonna want to subscribe. We'll talk more about books a little later.
Check out our Instagram also, Instagram.com/SnaggletoothRNR and Instagram.com/SnaggletoothDecay.
Yeah, we put up a lot of little snippets and shorts. Mark actually does a lot of music reviews. So, it would be nice, get some comments in there. Even if you disagree, please comment. We like interaction.
We're just going to keep putting shit up there. So anyway, I was thinking about it. Let's get back to fairy tales.
Okay.
I've come to the conclusion that fairy tales in their original form are actually dark as fuck. I'm saying that a lot this week.
Dark as fuck.
Yeah.
Must be the spooky time of year.
I mean, like we're talking Games of Thrones level violence here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the older Disney movies are scary as hell because they were based on that generation: Snow White, Bambi, Dumbo, Peter and the Wolf, Pinocchio. It wasn't until like the early 70s that Disney kind of realized somebody must have raised their hand in a board meeting and said, "Do we have to scare the shit out of the children?" And I think Mary Poppins was kind of
Well, and that, and I think the original fairy tales that they started doing with
Yeah.
Disney, I think they kind of ran out of some of the original fairy tales, even though they never really did a Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. But they started doing other things, but it's definitely much less dark than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, Disney has Disney-fied a lot of
Oh, yeah.
movies that were a lot darker, but they didn't pull any punches in like Snow White. I mean, they say right in there, he gives her that little crazy ornate box to bring back to the woodsman, to
Yeah.
bring back her heart that he's cut out of her body for her to eat.
Nice.
I mean, that's still
Sleep
in
well,
there.
children. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wolves in the woods back then. I think that was a big problem. I think a lot of people, it's like stay out of the wolves, stay out of the wolves. Stay out of the woods, especially at night, because wolves were very prevalent, I think, back then. Yeah, then you got they get the whole Little Red Riding Hood thing, soon to be a well-known porn film. Yeah.
Also, one of my favorite songs in this moment.
Way better than Rub a Dub Dub.
Big Bad Wolf.
Mhm.
Love it. Big, big. Sorry.
We're gonna try to get them on the show.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think Snow White was kind of like the prelude to Smurfette.
God.
Because you got Snow White and she's pleasuring 7 Danny DeVitos, and then poor Smurfette, she has to fuck everybody in the column. She's the only woman there. She must be exhausted riding the hobby horse.
Yeah.
Which one came first? Hansel and Gretel or Snow White? Didn't we look it up and it came out?
Yeah, I think it was really close to the
1812,
same
same
year,
year, yeah.
from what they got. But
Hansel.
Hansel? Hansel?
the original fairy tales were actually even darker than even what they did with Disney. Like with Snow White, even at the end,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the Disney movie, the witch just, what happens to her? She just runs away.
I can't remember.
She gets defeated. In the original fairy tale, they invite her to Snow White and the Prince's wedding, and they strap shoes on her feet that basically burn her, and she has to dance around the reception burning. Very pleasant. Very pleasant. Super, super nice.
So the Germans came up with both Hansel and Gretel, Hansel, and
Hansel?
Snow White in the same year. So that must have just been the year of eating people.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. She lures children, like she's like a pedophile, to her house that is covered in candy, which is a great, means to lure children. That's what everyone says. Want to get in the van for some candy? She was the precursor to this, right?
Yeah.
But instead, she decides that Hansel is the better morsel. So she sticks him in a cage and tries to fatten him up and starve Gretel and have her do all her chores. But then she still decides to eat both of them. But then she gets tricked and gets shoved into an oven. How big was this oven, by the way?
Yeah.
I always imagined it kind of like a pit oven.
Yeah.
But somehow she gets shoved into the oven by Gretel, and then they burn her up, which is
It was
also,
big enough to put your pet pig in after it dies.
also kind of gross. They burned her alive again. The witch gets burned alive.
This is such quality
It's
G-rated
witch burning.
entertainment.
It's witch burning. That's what it is. I'll put my foot down. It's witch burning.
What about the toe cutting off thing?
Oh, well, originally in Cinderella, number one, it wasn't a glass slipper. It was a fur slipper that got lost in translation. But in the original fairy tale, remember how the shoe had to fit?
Yeah.
And in the Disney version, they just basically try to shove their foot in there, quite comically,
Right.
and it pops out.
And in the
But-
Cinderella video.
In the original version, the youngest stepdaughter tries to fool him by, the older stepdaughter tries to fool him by cutting off her toe. But all the pigeons and animals kind of alert him to the fact that there's a trail of blood before he can get home. I don't know how he didn't see it, but he realizes that that's how she did it. And then he gets fooled again by the younger stepdaughter that tries to cut off her heel. But again, the pigeons are like, dumbass, line of blood. And then he finally identifies Cinderella, the girl of his dreams. And again, the stepsisters attend the wedding, just kind of like in Snow White. Apparently, this was the ultimate fuck you. They attend the wedding, but have their eyes pecked out by the, pigeons that were alerting them to the blood. So, yeah, it's kind of like the birds.
I guess Cinderella's a better title than The Prince and the Foot Butchers.
But it's just
Even though
like
that might have been
there
more
was
apt.
so much blood and just death.
It sounds like you're describing like the lyrics to the second Dissection record right now.
Yeah.
I'm craving listening to
Yeah,
Dissection.
it's a lot of really cannibalistic type stuff going on.
Mm.
Really, I mean, well before Jeffrey Dahmer,
Yeah.
there was, that people thinking about eating and cooking children. 420 blackbirds and a child baked in
Yeah.
a pie. We don't know.
Well, that all comes from Titus Andronicus. I think that was kind of the alpha.
And that's Shakespeare for those.
Yeah,
of
the
you
alpha
who
and the
don't know.
omega of just horror. I mean, it's got everything. It's got rape. It's got incest. It's got killing your enemies, baking them into a pie, and watching their mother eat the pie. Yeah,
Ugh.
and going, ha! You just ate your dead son.
That was actually brought up in Sabrina when
Yeah, it all goes back to Shakespeare.
oh yeah when Lilith has Satan's child and she doesn't want him to have the child and she knows he's going to get it. So in the series, she actually butchers the child and bakes him into a pie and feeds it to Satan. But he actually figures it out before he eats it.
How long are these two going to talk about nursery rhymes?
And baking children.
And here's one more. How
all
about
right,
Rumpelstiltskin?
Rumpelstiltskin is really, really, I can't believe how popular this was, and the fact that it endures today, because it's basically the story of a creepy little man who tries to steal a child, again, with the child stealing. And who knows for what nefarious purpose that he wants to steal a child. It never really addresses what he wants the child for. But he has magical powers, so he transforms a humble miller's daughter into this queen. And in exchange for this, she's supposed to turn over her firstborn child. However, of course, she gets the skinny on him when he comes to collect. She is able to guess correctly. So when she manages to do that, things get even weirder. He says, "The devil told you that." And he shouts and he gets so angry, he stamps his foot and somehow plunges his entire leg into the earth. So when he tries to pull himself out, he rips his body in two. If that isn't black metal, I don't know what is.
Ew.
Somebody who's writing this song.
Wow. On that pleasant note, let's talk about some smutty books.
So I have an author to introduce you to, K.L. Ramsey. She is the award-winning author of so many books. She's got a series out now called Haunted Honeymoon. If you like a lot of romance novels, she's your girl. She's got a tattooed kind of guy. The covers are great. It's all abs and guys and tattoos. And that's like Possessing Demon. Her books are available on Amazon. She's got a Christmas series. She's got a Grumpy Old Men series. Well, not old men, but Grumpy Man series, Grumpy Mountain Man series, because what they do is they need a woman to come, seduce them and save them. So she's got things like Too Much Mistletoe when it's a girl and two guys on the cover. I wonder what that's about.
Ma'am, I just finished chopping all the firewood for you. Oh, could you take your shirt off and do just a little more? Oh, yeah. Mm.
Haunted Honeymoon is great. It's about a woman who gets jilted at the altar, goes out, tries to find, solace on a honeymoon by herself, but she ends up in this old house, and darn it, she needs a repairman. I wonder if the repairs will get done.
Ma'am, you called about laying some pipe. I'm here.
Anyway, check out her books, K.L. Ramsey, available on Amazon in the regular old paperback, hardback, or audiobook series. K.L. Ramsey, check her out.
Okay. Let's get back to the Alan Averill Show, part 2. Next band is going way back. I believe 2010. Alan got together with Jay Reed and Chris Ross they're both in multiple black metal projects like Revenge and Axis of Advance. Drummer James Reed, he is insane on this record, by the way. Check out Indoctrine, amazing. His fills are all over the place, and the pace on the songs, they border on grindcore in spots. It's kind of a death slash black metal hybrid. It's interesting hearing Alan's vocals over this kind of speedy death metal. Yeah.
But they were actually quite controversial because of songs like basically told from a suicide bomber's position. But
Oh, really?
but I
Interesting.
think those songs, they need to be out there. I
Hmm.
mean, you kind of got to get on both sides of things. So
Hmm.
the pace is just incredible. The lyrics are very poignant.
Bones and blood lie on the ground, rotten limbs lie dead, decapitated bodies lie on my wall, your head. So there's some Slayer lyrics right there. Yeah.
And Alan actually said in an interview that these lyrics weren't meant to be cartoonish. They were actually, based on, the violence that happens in Ireland and I suppose anywhere else in this world. Really, there's always craziness. So it's really good to delve into both sides, and I really think that this is well done.
The city is dying like a wounded animal, in need of mercy killing to be put out of its misery. This is Dead City Stare. Okay. That sound. It's Wax of Contrition time. What little vinyl treasure do I have for you this week?
Can't wait.
I probably have. This is pretty much 101 for anyone who's into any kind of extreme metal. And I'm talking about this. Altars of Madness.
Oh,
If you have thought about getting this on vinyl, but thought, well, wait, my children don't have shoes, I say go for the album. I mean, kids will get shoes eventually. Something will happen.
huge influencer on the Florida death metal scene.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what issue this is, but I'll show you some close-ups in a moment. But the staying power of this album is largely due to two factors. Okay, first, Trey. By the way, Trey's real name is George Emmanuel III. Basically, he had the opportunity of doing it wrong. He went all the way through the process of making an album and then scrapping it. So by the time that was back in '86. So by the time they got together the second time, he knew how to make a fucking death metal record, and he had drafted none other than Pete Sandoval,
Amazing double
probably
bass.
the most brutal
Insane.
drummer to ever come around between the first three Morbids and then obviously Terrorizer. But Morbid Angel channeled their like Satan obsessed, self-mutilating inclinations into this intense, brain-jarring record.
Well, early on, they were really very anti-Christian,
Oh yeah,
the lyrics. Later on, it kind of is more philosophical.
philosophical. Yeah, this one I'm not sure what issue this is, but there's the gatefold.
Oh.
There's our heroes. Pretty much from like I think I discovered this album. It came out in '89, and I felt like up until that point, it was an argument. What was Rain and Blood the fastest album ever made? What was the heaviest album ever made? And this just swept the decks when it came out. Like nothing. Even now, I don't think any band has ever touched this level of intensity. I may have told this story on the show before, but when I went and saw Immolation, and it was like a multi-band bill, and I was hanging around after Immolation played, and Morbid Angel came on, and it was great that Morbid Angel started playing. I think it was Suffocation or something, and I was watching the guys from Immolation. They knew every word. They were headbanging along and singing. So I've never seen that before. Like a band that I love, kind of playing air guitar to a band that I love. It was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is ground level stuff, people.
even though their lyrics are a little blasphemous, non-traditional, I don't think they go into evil. I think they stay on this side of things. So love it.
I mean, the best parallel I could kind of muster is maybe like Celtic Frost to Megatherion. Just the struggle of a young visionary to see through a project through the harshest of environments, pushing, working, calculating, and overcoming struggles to what seemed like little fanfare at the time. But the end result, this has aged like fine wine. I mean, this cover art belongs in your collection. This gorgeous blue and black side by side with maybe the deep green of the first Pestilence record, which may be the very next record.
I
It's
love all
interesting.
the hidden faces in this too.
Yeah, I think it's, dare I say, dark as fuck. So, let's play a song. It is Maze of Torment.
So I'd like to talk about our sponsor, Home Chef. I just made us an amazing meal from them. Didn't take very long with chicken breast, and you make a sauce with bacon. They had you with a zucchini, with panko and Parmesan. I put in a habanero, of course, because we need to move the product.
We decided not to bake any little children today.
They have amazing recipes. You can pick every one of your meals. You can even specify if you want more meat, less meat, different kind of meat. They offer options. They even offer vegan options. Later this week, I will be making creamy chicken and orzo soup, barbecue ranch tacos, and every recipe will tell you how long it takes to make. The barbecue ranch and steak tacos take 15 minutes. It tells you how hard it is to make. And you can look over all this before you order. If you want all easy stuff, it'll tell you if it's spicy or not. It'll tell you if it's calorie conscious or not. And then we have Fiesta shrimp flatbreads. So if you would like yourself, they all have great meals. Order them. Click on the link. It will save you on your first box from us to you, to your door. Fabulous meals, easy to cook, good for you. What more is there to want?
I tried to select Snow White's heart for my meat, but it was $99 a pound.
Yeah, there are a few upcharges on certain things like that. Small children in a pie.
There you go.
So there's an upcharge on that.
So I think it's time to introduce the interview. What do you think?
So now we're
Part two.
actually going to get into our part 2 interview with Alan Averill. Love him, enjoyed our talk with him, and what a Renaissance man, and how many projects is this man in? And of course Primordial is his mainstay. So really love his insights on things, really love his insights on other metal things, which we get into here.
I'll give you a warning. If you're a Candlemass fan, you may want to skip part of it, but I won't say any more.
So here's our interview, part 2 with Alan Averill.
Do you ever think you've put hours and hours into choosing just the right words, just the right lyrics, sending the right message, telling the story perfectly and in your way, and it's just one of those days we want to break some shit, makes all the money? Does that ever be like, motherfuck,
Yeah.
Something that cast off. He took him 5 minutes to write, and he's making billions on it.
Yeah, well, of course, but I mean, it's that's the difference between art and entertainment, isn't it? That's the dilemma.
Yeah.
Is that lowest common denominator stuff is usually rewarded more and more
Exactly.
by the society that we live in. But yeah, I mean, look, I have Dread Sovereign to fuck around a bit with. I can say, hail Satan, witches, bitches, blah 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 blah. I can do some, satanic speed metal stuff in Dread Sovereign, so I can.
I'm an alchemical warfare man. That's my Dread
Oh,
Sovereign
yeah.
record. Yeah, just fucking amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
my
it came
pick.
out great.
So let's talk about the 90s a little bit. You've got,
Okay,
I sent you that email about it.
sure.
So I've heard your discussion, and I know you were there. Well, I was there too. And thrash became silly, ran out of steam.
Yeah.
Death metal was in vogue for a while, then eventually became silly. This is like the Choosing Death book.
You're right. Okay, I
Black
haven't read that
metal.
book.
By the late 90s, black metal was also silly. I didn't ever believe any of that shit, ever, because Sepultura was still going strong with thrash in the mid 90s. I could always find good albums, thank you, from thrash bands. After the whole black metal silly years, there was still Death Spell Omega was cranking out fantastic records. I mean, I just always felt like I was always disappointed at that, because I thought, why are there trends in this extreme music? I mean, why are we feeling this way? And I know I've always wanted to discuss that with you. I remember feeling strange reading that in the underground rags, that oh, thrash is so 5 minutes ago. Now we're into death metal. Oh, death metal is now silly because of Wolverine Blues, and I just always
Yeah.
thought that was bullshit because it's like there are still monumental thrash albums being made in the mid '90s, late '90s. Great death metal.
Was there? I don't remember many thrash metal albums. I mean, I was kind of. I think the problem.
What
It
year was
really.
like Demolition Hammer? What year was that? I mean, that was
Demolition Hammer. Yeah, okay, that's like 96 to 99. I'm not. I mean, Demolition Hammer is a really odd band because whatever their fucking deal was with Century Media, their fucking albums weren't available over here. You couldn't get Tortured Existence or whatever. We tried to import them, Century Media, maybe mid '90s, and they couldn't get it. There was some good thrash metal records. Demolition Hammer is verging on sort of death thrash or whatever.
Anacrusis. I would consider them a thrash band. I love their stuff. They were Metal Blade.
Suffering Hour and stuff. Yeah, I mean that, but that's kind of like, isn't Suffering Hour 1990 or 1989? I think what happened is that for a whole generation of people, me included, I wanted studs, nails, leather, Satan, speed, blood. I didn't want social commentary. I didn't want songs about clean up the environment. I fucking hated it. I didn't want bands to wear shorts, skateboarding. I hated Anthrax. I wanted Seven Churches and nothing else.
Yeah.
Bathory the Return. I was into Dark Angel. I wanted dark stuff, and eventually thrash was just, when it was, every band had a joke cartoon song on the record, and then death metal just came along, boom, Altars of Madness just kicked it all into oblivion. First Deicide, Autopsy, Slowly We Rot, and that's like, yes, this is what we want. Evil back. And then those bands began to get a bit run out of energy, run out of speed. Maybe not Morbid Angel ever, but by 93, 94, death metal had changed, and it was on MTV. And don't get me wrong, I love Obituary and stuff. I wasn't under any I wasn't under any illusion that they were like committed to the the, how shall we say, committed to seriously believing in the things they were writing. And it was just horror or whatever. But then black metal came along and it dragged everything back to 1981, which is what we wanted. Venom, Kronos, and Abaddon on the back with hammers. And every time something came along to drag metal back to its primeval, orthodox state. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want any progression. I didn't want death metal bands doing songs with rappers. I didn't want Judgment Night. I hated all of it. I didn't even want...
I'm with you on that.
Divine Intervention, too much shouting. Make your punk album. Fuck off, didn't listen to it. Where's your album with Venom and Raven covers, which what you were doing in 1981? It basically, I was like, my opinion about black metal hasn't changed 1 inch since 1991. It's totally orthodox. And I'm super proud of the fact that Primordial has no embarrassing electronic bits or strange records where we, cut our hair or whatever. We were never orthodox black metal, but my feeling about black metal hasn't moved an inch. I don't want it to progress, to move at all. I think orthodox.
I think we consumed music differently.
Yeah.
I was always looking for the outlier. I was always looking for the Death Spell Omega. I was always looking for, trying to find, well, all this other thrash is silly, but there's these two records and they fucking rule.
Sure.
And they're weird, close to A World Below, 2000. I mean, that's,
Okay, Immolation, yeah.
Death metal's long over. No, it's not. So I guess I was sort of just always kind of looking for the diamonds,
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. Immolation is one of the greatest death metal bands of all time. Don't get me wrong. I didn't give up on death metal. I just wanted evil. So it's pretty simple. I still do. Whether it's modern death metal, that's what I look for. I look for the disgusting sort of sepulchral, ghastly stuff. The same, and there's tons of it. There's loads of great death metal. I was only listening to, what is this band from Montreal, Outre Tomb. There's lots and lots of great bands out there, lots and lots of great death metal. But I just always wanted, anytime I felt like I was being led in on a in-joke, or I felt even a glimmer of a sense of humor, it's not for me. Look, I have a sense of humor, for fuck's sake. I have, of course, but I don't want it in music. I hate it. I hate the sense that I always wanted violence, darkness, sort of extreme, an extremity of whatever it was. Even if it was in a naive way, I wanted, Sodom in the sign of evil, masturbate to kill myself.
No, I agree with
that's,
you. Yeah,
that's what I wanted. And
Yeah.
so I never liked the sacred rites, the testaments, the practice what you preach is all that kind of stuff. And so when black metal came out, it just, because we were all, of course, tape trading Master's Hammer and Rotting Christ, and this is 89, 90, 91, 92, Blasphemy. And it was bubbling up. And it was exactly what a whole generation of people were waiting for metal to be dragged back to its sort of primeval cave, and bludgeon you with a brick. And that was kind of how black metal was, And I'm not into, I agree with you, I'm not into the keyboardy, flouncy stuff. I'm not into I like, hey, the first Cradle of demos and the first
I think
album.
they were okay. They didn't get all trigger crazy for the first 4 or 5 records.
Yeah, well, say that to my mate Nick. Yeah, no, the first Principle of Evil Made Flesh. It's a great record, and Vampire.
I've noticed kind of 2 trends that I see with black metal with what we do. Number one, there's far more women that like it now than I think did.
There always was. Yeah.
Like just Maryland Death Fest this year, it was almost 50-50.
It really was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it makes total sense when you really think about it. I mean, if you think about 1980, think about the mid 80s, whether it was, your Poisons, your Dawkins, your big hair bands, there was an element of sort of pantomime dress up, and the bands were so huge and so massive, and that sort of disappeared from metal. And I think that, death metal had a kind of, and thrash metal were kind of quite ugly forms of music, to be very superficial about it. And what black metal did is it brought a whip of an element of the goth back in. All of a sudden it was, going to a black metal show, you were guaranteed that I'm going to sound a bit superficial here, but let's say mid 90s. If you went to like a death metal show in the early 90s, let's say Malevolent Creation, let's pick Demolition Hammer and more goth or something. I mean, the audience is going to be 95% males. It's just ugly dudes playing ugly music or whatever.
Right.
That's fine. But all of a sudden, Cradle and bands like this brought in this sort of vampiric image, which has always kind of had this sort of deep sort of grip on our collective literary conscience, or through movies at the time, The Crow, whatever. And all of a sudden, there was a touch of pantomime, theater, dress up, a kind of, and I don't want to say that the bands were huge back then, selling 500,000 records, and it just opened up metal in a totally different way, I think, to a sort of a different audience. That was much more, and there was much more women at black matches. Like if you went to see if you want to see Moonspell, Cradle, and Immortal in '96, it was 60-40. Go to a black metal show now, and it sowed some seeds that thankfully carried on to, like, if you go to some cool festival like Muscle Rock in Sweden or Chaos Descends, audiences will be almost split. It seems that once you slightly removed some of the ugliness and aggression and said, okay, we have some ugliness and aggression, we've also got some other things in the pot, other things in the mix, that you go to Chaos Descends, you can see Hawkwind playing after Blasphemy, and then Coven are on the other stage, and then maybe, there's a new wave British heavy metal style band. The entire experience will be shared by a much more evenly split gender. However, if you will go to that nowadays Malevolent Creation, Demolition Hammer show, you'll go back to 90%. Male. But yeah, black metal changed the game. Black metal totally changed the game because, let's be honest, it was kind of sexy.
Yeah.
This rock used to be sexy. A friend of mine, she's into dance music, where we hang out sometimes, and this is years ago. I was playing her. She didn't know anything about heavy metal, and she listened to Iron Maiden, and she's like, "This is the most sexless music I've ever heard." She's just like, "What the fuck is going?" It was like Somewhere in Time or something, and she's like, "This is horrific. This is a horror." And I was laughing at her, and then she heard "Delivering the Goods," Judas Priest. She's like, "Down, out, down, out," and she's like, "This." You could fuck to this, but you couldn't fuck to Iron Maiden. And it was hilarious. And then she heard Danzig, and she's like, here's my band. Here's my band. And that sort of left rock music, that the cult sort of sound, Danzig, that kind of thing. And for whatever it's worth, black metal sort of brought some element of, pale, thin dukes on stage staring off into the mid distance with makeup on that echoed Sisters of Mercy and Fields of Nephilim and
The Cure pornography and yeah.
Sister Susie and the Banshees, and it
Yeah.
took Misfits and it took the Damned and stuff, and or well maybe not early Damned, but what they became, and it took some elements of Bauhaus and it took something of the other that I think just maybe appealed to more women than, as I said, just ugly aggression.
I don't think
and-
that's what Fenriz had in mind when it went in the early days. I think that's a side effect. Fenriz
True,
wanted to
it's
play Hellhammer riffs,
Yeah, it's a side effect for Dark Throne. But he shouldn't have made such a cool logo then, should he? That's a hot topic logo. No, it's it changed the game. Black metal certainly changed the game. Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, and then Satyricon and all these kind of bands, Emperor even. They changed the game. And
I think now there's probably more coming out that I've ever seen in that genre.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
one
there's-
man. The one man thing is easy now because of the availability of studio equipment, and you don't have to split the money with anybody else. And
If,
Yeah,
if
there's-
somebody sends me music like they want us to listen, it's 9 times out of 10 it's some kind of black or dark or
you
Yeah.
can't sleep on it because every once in a while, like you do that band Isaac Trilahome. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have a really long name. It's a one man black metal band. Fantastic, very different. Lots of sonic changes, very different. But there still has the Bathory in there.
No,
Great.
there's tons of great music out there. I mean, my
Yeah.
friend runs Invictus Productions, and only today I was in his warehouse collecting something, and you go through flick through the vinyls and everything. I mean, there's so much good music out there. I mean, he releases Negative Plane. Negative Plane, one of the best modern bands there is. And this is sort of on some whole other level of black metal. There's tons of good bands out there, but they're all under the mainstream. Mainstream metal generally is a fucking rotting carcass of banality. It's like a fucking cruise ship, a floating toilet, fucking floating around the Mediterranean or the Caribbean somewhere. Mainstream metal is like almost a lost cause, except for the old classic bands. It's by and large, it's the horror of Five Finger Death Punch or whatever you want. But
I did listen to your commentary on that. I thought it was very interesting. Yeah. Standing there watching a band that you think is shite.
Yeah, it was
trying to analyze why people like it.
Yeah, well, people like awful stuff. I mean, look at Hailstorm or whatever. People like bad music. Unfortunately, I think that what happened is that if you take 1976, 1986, if you take heavy metal in 1986, the best bands were the most popular. Sure, of course, there was underground stuff, but whether it was Peace Cells, it was Rain and Blood, it was Master of Puppets, and then just under that, you've got the Dios, the Priests, the whatever. There was so much great music, but it was the most popular. By 96, this has changed a bit, and you've got the beginnings of new metal. By 2006, this is Nightwish, and this is Within Temptation. These are the biggest kind of bands. And now you go and look at the main stage at a metal festival. If you take away the legacy bands, except with the exceptions of the Mastodons and Gojiras, who I think are great bands, it's by and large a sort of weird, horrific mess. Like there literally really is. It's just a smorgasbord of bad taste, of which a band like Five Finger Death Punch are undoubtedly part of that. But they've been made by committee in a back room somewhere. I mean, look, give it to them. The guy can sing, whatever. You got to give it to them. On some level.
You are the guy who knows who Ghost is.
I do know who Ghost is. Well, I did used to. I know Tobias a bit, from back in the day. He used to be in Repugnant and stuff. Yeah. But, he changes his members quite often. New Ghost album is awful, I think, by the way.
What do you think of like this kind of hybrid stuff that's coming out where you might start with clean vocals and then it kind of goes into kind of like a growly thing and then back out? I've noticed a lot of trends with that happening.
I think that's a sort of traditional kind of thing of the last. It's a new metal thing, isn't it? To have the kind of build up, verse into the heavy chorus and the whatever. I mean, I don't hate Korn or anything. I think Limp Bizkit are horrific, but Korn were sort of at the start of it, and I get why it was popular. It was a sort of a new kind of sound and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, there is tons of great. Like you go to Musco Rock or something in Sweden. So I'd recommend it to anybody to travel to. It's one of the best festivals. It's in an old Folkehets Park, whatever it's called, Folke Park. It's like an old amusement kind of amusement park from the 50s. They used to build them in Sweden. like it's got merry-go-round kind of theme to it, and then it's just all these great sort of 70s style Lizzie-ish twin harmony bands, and you go, God, this band would have been huge in 1977 or 83 or whatever, and they're releasing their records in 500 copies on vinyl and getting a bit of a buzz, or Hallas or something like this, from Sweden.
That's awesome.
There's tons of great bands. It's just in the mainstream, it's very difficult for a good band to break through to somehow appeal to the lowest common denominator. And I mean, people would accuse me of being elitist in this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, if you pay the dues, if you paid your time and you've tape traded from the beginning and you're obsessive about music, and that's the problem, that people who are obsessive about music forget that they're dealing with. Most people aren't. And they just want, play the song I know with the tune, with the chorus I know, so I can drink a beer and have a good time at a festival.
No, you're right. You're right.
But then on the side stage, you can go and watch Alcest. So it's okay. Like I said, literally, Five Finger Death Punch is there. They're headlining big stage. But you know what? Like I said, Alcest is on the other stage if you want to watch something beautiful and gorgeous and amazing. So everything can coexist. It just wouldn't be a very interesting podcast if I went, yeah, I saw this band and they were really good. Okay.
All right, I got a good one for you. Okay. Tell me some metal albums that are absolute classics that you don't like, that everyone seems to say is a classic, but you just don't see it.
I'll tell you, I don't like Alice in Chains, and everyone seems to love Alice in Chains.
Too much
I get
Pink
it.
Floyd in there for me. I don't like them either.
Oh, I love Pink Floyd, but I know why Alice in Chains are good, but the wah, 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 like the endless over harmonizing of all the between line parts drives me nuts.
Mr. Averill, I saw them open up the Clash of the Titans tour.
Oh, right.
They
I'd say that
looked
was
like
rough.
a bunch of fucking posers to no end. They had like 6 inches of stage because, Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth were behind them.
Of course,
And
yeah.
they looked like they did not belong there at all.
No,
So, yeah, that's my memory of Alice in Chains. And they were kind of like Guns N' Roses glammed up
beginning.
too. Yeah.
Alice in Chains. Speaking of Anthrax, there's a band that people love that I really don't like. I don't really rate. I'm the Man and stuff. I partially blame. It's partially to blame for new metal. They're a band I don't really rate too much.
They got kind of cartoony. Yes.
Yeah, just not my thing.
Yeah.
There's lots of albums that people consider classics that I'm sort of left me on the shore.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's of course, when you're put on the spot with these questions, they're more difficult to think about. But yeah, I mean, like I'm not a huge fan of like Divine or fucking Seasons in the Abyss. I half like it, half don't. I mean, I'm more of Peace Sells than Rust in Peace, or but there's the Anthrax thing. I'd have to really sit down and think of it, because instantly my brain is just like blah, and just thinking of hundreds of different things.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I can blaspheme a little bit. I don't like Candlemass, and I know you're going to probably hang up on me, but so see, here's the thing. Growing up in Baltimore, Pentagram was always this legendary band.
Okay, yeah.
We followed Bobby Liebling's drug escapades to the letter.
Right.
And that's a band that just, I don't know if you've seen the documentary, but just nothing but bad luck. I mean,
we were only talking about it today, actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll see. So to me, Sabbath and Pentagram were always the doom pillars. And when I heard Candlemass, I loved the first song, Solitude.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I could never get behind it. It always sounded like music from church, from being in church.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about church. So,
yeah.
And then Messiah took over, and I thought it was even worse. I was like, what is this? This doesn't sound like Pentagram. This doesn't sound like Sabbath,
Yeah, well, there's a different thing there, which is, if you think about it, even though Candlemass is inspired by Sabbath, Candlemass sometimes owes more to classical music than it does to the standard blues scale, in a way. It's got a touch of Malmsteen in the solos. It's overblown. It's gothic. It's certainly not what scuzzy dudes in blue jeans.
Yeah. See, that's more my speed.
Want to drink moonshine? I mean, I love Pentagram. I love all those old, all those old Hellhound records, Vitus and Yeah, I mean, I love Candlemass, but it's like I think Nightfall is one of the most perfect metal records ever made, and I even like if you listen to Chapter 6, that's a bit more loose, or an album called From the 13th Sun. That's got a totally different singer on it, and it's a record when they were kind of in the middle of nowhere in the late 90s, 98, I think, and that's brilliant. That's really Sabbath, and it's very sort of stripped down. It's not overblown and gothic. I get it. You know, Tales of Creation is this huge religious sounding record, so it's
Yeah,
a,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
different kind of doom. It's not cool, hip, mustache, smoke weed.
Handlebar mustache, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not.
you
know.
mentioned a band at a festival having the look. I'll tell you what, a few years ago, MDF, Church of Misery from Japan
Oh
played.
yeah, from Japan.
They had the Sabbath look down. I looked
Yeah.
up, I thought it was Sabbath. He even had the fringy leather.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was Sabbath. Bell bottoms. Wow.
The only problem I had with that band is I saw them once, and I didn't. If I'm not mistaken, they have kind of harsh singing, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's a little growly, yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of was like, oh, okay, cool, killer riffs, but really, this is the singing that you're gonna do? It's okay, but it's
All their
like
songs are about serial killers.
yeah, it's like after a couple of albums that you kind of want to, dude, you're gonna have to bust out a chorus or something for me to keep with your doom if you're gonna, unless it's doom death, then I can
Yeah.
handle it.
But you can do the cathedral and Forest of Equilibrium and
Of course, no, I mean, yeah, it's all those old bands, Eternal Void, and well, you've got Reverend Bazaar, of course, fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a doom guy.
yeah.
I mean, and back in the day, like 88, 89, 90, no one liked it. I mean, playing people Solitude Eternus or Penance or something in the 1991, no one gave a shit about
Oh yeah.
any of those
I've
bands.
got a good story for you. So I went to one of these all-day doom festivals that they have in Baltimore from time to time, and the
Oh, yeah.
last band was Pentagram, and they hadn't played out for like 5 or 6 years, and they were late, really late. It was 1:30, it was 1:45,
Yeah,
and then finally the curtain opens and it's Joel Hasselvander just standing there and the drummer, and he's playing Pentagram songs and singing what a fucking piece of shit Bobby Liebling is because he didn't show up.
all right.
And I'm like, wow, Bobby's outdone himself with this no-show. And then all of a sudden, this crazy man that looked like Doc from Back to the Future in a silvery shirt came running
Yeah.
through the crowd, jumped up on stage, and tried to sing. I think they were doing like Living in a Ram's Head or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Hasselvander kicks him in the ass and then says, the show's over. That was it.
Wow.
So that's the Pentagram reunion story.
Oh, yeah, I think he was in a hospital, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw the first Pentagram show in Europe, which was at the old Hell's Pleasure, I think, which was before Chaos Descends, and no one knew if he was going to show up or not because there'd been a couple of shows booked where he didn't show up,
yeah.
and it was like the band started and you couldn't see him, and then out of nowhere, like I guess he was lying on the stage.
That was the danger of Pentagram. It was, is he going to show up or not?
Yeah, and today, I mean, I've seen them however 5 or 6 times, and every time I see them, it's just killer.
They crush it every time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what's his name is not on the guitar. Victor Griffin is not there on the guitar anymore.
Oh no, but he found Jesus. Remember?
He found Jesus. He find Jesus years ago, though.
Oh, he did the whole Place of Skulls thing, and
yeah, which is great, I reckon. But he was playing the last time I saw Pentagram, and then we met them in an airport only about a month ago, and they had some other dude playing.
I don't know. He kind of left me on the shore. He did that album with fucking Wino, and I thought it was going to be the second coming. The album's not that good. The Place of Skulls with Vision.
With Vision, I like it. I was only listening to it.
Wino saved all of the good riffs for his band. What was it? The Hidden Hand.
Oh yeah. Well,
that came out the same time.
Well, Spirit Caravan I loved. Hidden Hand I didn't love so much. I think if you've got Wino in your band, you probably should let him sing, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right, can I
That's
get one more
opinion.
question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So what's next for you personally? What do you got on tap?
Yeah, what do you got going on?
I'll go with Dread Sovereign to play in Germany next Thursday, and then we have a covers band with 2/3 of Dread Sovereign and another guy, and we're going to do Motorhead, Venom, Tank, all that kind of stuff. and then we come back to Dublin. Then Primordial is playing on the Saturday in Dublin, and that's next week. And then over the rest of the year, then we have playing in Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania.
Do you
think
guys do
Germ-
live streaming at all so we can watch it?
No,
Ah, that's all
No.
the rage.
we refuse to do. We won't do anything like that. We didn't want to. We thought about doing a rehearsal in the round,
Uh-huh.
which showing us, prepare and talking and kind of an informal rehearsal was maybe the only thing we would do as a live stream. But we all agreed to not do the lockdown thing. I mean, if somebody in the venue is filming you and streaming it, that's fuck all you can do. I don't care about that.
Right.
But a professional, with a crowd, it's okay. I mean, but setting it all up as a live thing, I don't know. Like, there's all these streaming platforms popped up trying to charge people for doing so, and I don't know. It feels like an awful lot of work. I mean, we did this. We took part in this lockdown streaming kind of thing, kind of cross-platform, cross-festival thing. We had a full live show sitting around, and I mean, in the end, they didn't even put the link to the band's merch properly, and I think we sold like 4 shirts or something out of it.
Wow.
Look, I don't know. Whatever. It's we're just not that. We're not those kind of. We're just not that kind of band. We don't have management trying to push us into. You should do this thing and that thing, and we're also very lazy and sort of disorganized.
I guess we can't talk you back into Maryland Death Fest to get you over this one.
Isn't Maryland Death Fest stopping, or
We don't know.
I think it's always stopping. They
Okay.
have pulled this so many times. Like, venues will close, and then it's like I actually think it's a little bit of it's my conspiracy theory. I think that
I heard it was something to do with the insurance going up like 100% or something.
I fully expect that it will change but continue because it's just such a draw,
Someone
Maybe.
will pick up the mantle.
Maybe. I mean, it's a great festival, and I really enjoyed being there. But I did notice that there was, like, from a certain kind of a genre, we seem to be the only band that would have been represented. Like, you never were going to see, some of those early kind of pagan metal kind of stuff. That's something that I think they clearly steered away from, which is fair enough.
I saw Mortuary Drape at MDF. Yeah.
Oh yes.
That doesn't fit the bill, but it was great to see them.
Mortuary Drape is great. Yeah,
They're an outlier. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Well, but having said that, there's a lot of great old Italian stuff in the late 70s and early 80s. You obviously got Death SS, but there's Black Hole. There's a fucking load of great bands from Italy. And there's a load of great occult rock bands. Very strange. It's mixed in with their horror movie history from the 70s.
Yeah, Italian metal is strange. Yeah. Death SS is like the Alpha and the Omega, the Paul Chain.
Yeah,
and
Paul
then
Chain.
You're right.
Yeah.
There's so much weird shit. Yeah,
there's way more than you think if you scratch the surface. Abysmal Grief is from Italy as well. They're a cool band.
Right.
But yeah, Mortuary Drape. I'm a big fan of the first 2 or 3, but I still buy the records. Into the Drape and stuff. Yeah. What better way to close it out with a Mortuary Drape reference?
There you go. Absolutely. All right, sir. Well, thank you so much.
So great to meet you.
Enjoy. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.
I will try, my friend. Take it easy.
Okay. Take it easy.
The sounds of decay!
Okay, Sounds of Decay time. Band number 1. This band is Avaturn, 4-piece from New York City. Looks like they formed back in 2015. They released an EP in 2018 called Sireless and quickly added another guitarist. So this has been out a while. Back in March, this came out. This is their first full length. It's called The Ailing Facade on Profound Lore. Look at that album cover. Creepy.
Yeah, they're definitely kind of a little bit of experimental death metal, but well worth the listen.
Yeah, we might have to call this show the Crazed Drummer Show because this is another one where the drummer is just off the fucking hook. I mean, you could tell that this guy has heard Pete Sandoval himself. Um, but I think that the bass tone is really strong on this recording. I love the two guitars. The vocalist's name is Garrett Basanik, and he has already mastered that hairy, guttural incantation type of growl, gargle, The best way I can describe it is immolation drums and incantation vocals. You know what I mean?
I also don't know how to say the drummer's name. It's Ian, and I don't know how to do the last name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
There's even some creepy
Jack
electronics they sneak
Sislin.
in.
I don't know.
The song Still the Hollows Sway has some like creepy electronics in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
yeah, so just I mean, you need to get on this right away. Like I said, immolation drums, incantation vocals, and some creepiness. I mean, what's there not to love? Let's play a song. This is called Denature. Okay, I'll let you handle number 2, darling.
Sounds of Decay number 2, De Profundis. This is a long-running doom death band from the UK. And this was actually, from what I saw, De Profundis was actually a letter written by Oscar Wilde while he was in jail to his lover. So I don't know quite how they came to the name, but this is a
I thought
great.
it was James McNeill Whistler.
This is a great 2 guitars. They're a 5-piece. This is their 6th full length. So they already have quite, a discography. The Corruption of Virtue that came out this month on Transcending Obscurity. 1 minute, they're like tech death. And then
the twin guitars are like snaking in and out. It sort of reminds me of Aneda. I love it, Aneda. Yeah. Once in a while, they'll go into like a slow crush, like asphyx mode. This is good stuff, people.
But they didn't say that they got their name from Oscar Wilde. Ironically enough, they said they got it from a song by Abruption, which is another shun.
I doubt they ever met Oscar Wilde.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But that was a song by them, so that's where the name comes from. But I don't even know if they know about Oscar Wilde. I'm assuming that they do.
I can't not say it. De Profundis is my favorite Vader album too. I gotta say it. Sorry. Anyway.
So this is their last offering since their 2018, The Blinding Light of Faith. So we're really glad to have them back and putting out some good stuff.
So what song are we gonna play?
We're gonna play, of course, with the theme of all our fairy tales, ritual cannibalism. Maybe of children, maybe not.
See how it all fits together. I mean, $6.66. Come on.
You can do it.
I'm not going to say we saved the best for last, but we did. So
near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, defleshed are back. Often imitated, never duplicated. And this completes our showcase of outrageous drummers. Just listen to Matt going berserk on this fucking thing. I mean,
and you all know how much we love Gus. I'm so glad they're back. What's it been 17 years?
Wow.
Since their last offering.
Full length. Yeah.
But this is great. The artwork is amazing. For Grind Over Matter.
Heads on Spikes.
Heads on Spikes. And we love a lot of shows with Heads on Spikes, like Walking Dead or Game of Thrones. This is All This Darkness. They have their incredible vinyl available in 3 different colors. And check this out. You can buy this on Amazon.
I don't know if you can. I think I bought the only one they had. Because they said 1 copy available and I bought it. So
I think it's on pre-order.
Okay.
But or you can go over to their page and also get all kinds of great stuff.
Or some of that fucking defleshed beer.
I know.
Gus, hook us up. How do I get that?
And Mercenaries Gin. I still want Mercenaries Gin.
Anyway, the album drops officially on Metal Blade on 28th this month. Years in the making. It's like they never left. Congratulations to Fleshed. Let's play Grind Over Matter. We've covered a lot today. Talked about candles. We talked with Alan about mortuary drape.
We talked about butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers, and
a lot of cooking people in this show. How we got to that.
Lots of Snow White, lots of Disney even.
Well, lots of fairy tales, I'd say. Life's no fairy tale.
Although,
I think that's actually kind of good now that I know the origins of some of these fucking things.
yeah, and I
you know?
think black metal, there's a lot in fairy tales you guys could do.
Yeah, I think dissection, you have to lighten it up for dissection. Yeah, compared to the original shit. People in the 1800s they were not fucking around.
We
you know?
went over the different types of homeless people with signs, or
It's true, we
people just
did.
begging with signs.
If you're gonna be homeless, let's whole ass it, okay? Don't half-ass your sign.
Yeah,
you know?
don't hold it down
Don't
here.
hold it down there. Come on, let's see it.
This has been the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast. The Snaggletooth theme, courtesy of the Fleshed Gustav Jord. Get over there and get grind over matter. Sounds of Decay written by Steve Rathbone of Lair of the Minotaur. Thanks again to Alan Averill for being such a great guest, great sport, great fellow Irishman on the show. Decay bands, check them out. Abertine, De Profundis, Defleshed. We have a lot of D's. Abertine, De Profundis, Defleshed. All content 2022. The Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.